So, so you first started, you said this has been 20 years?
Writing, yeah. Although I
Hmm.
have to share with you, I got my first horse when I was 7, and I wrote my first horse story when I was 10 years old. And I
Oh,
still
nice.
have.
I was about to ask, did this start as a kid? Where did this come from?
And then I picked up the guitar at the age of 16, and I was destined. I actually had a great soprano, I had a full range vocal ability, and I was determined to take over when Joan Baez and Judy Collins retired. Well, neither one of them have, but I had a sustained career as a folk singer for about 20, 30 years, and I wrote a lot of my own music. That was the era of John Denver and Linda Ronstadt,
Oh, yeah.
the narrative genre where folk songs and popular music told a story.
Hmm.
And I discovered, as I sort of weaned out of that and then became a writer for several magazines, I wrote music reviews for country, western, and western music,
Hmm.
that all of my songs were like they were short stories.
Hmm.
And when I decided to take my literary interest seriously was the year our son graduated from high school and went away to college. I was 50 years old, and I had discovered this amazing castle in Sedalia,
Hmm.
Colorado, the
Hmm.
Cherokee Ranch, if you've
Hmm.
ever visited there. And I interviewed the then owner, Tweet Kimball, who was very much alive and the queen of her castle, and notably a breeder of the Santa Gertrudis herd, a breed of cattle. And she was part of the inspiration for McGregor's Lantern, because the heroine in our story might have been Tweet Kimball 100 years earlier.
Oh, wow.
She was gracious. I spent an entire day with her, and she helped me take that book to the next level. Um, I got my second horse when I was 40, and he passed away when I was 66. So I had that horse for 26 years,
Hmm.
longer than most of my friends have been married. I joke about that because people trade horses and trade husbands on about the same, at least here in Denver. I don't know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was
I
chosen.
kept mine for a while.
You know what I'm saying? I,
Yeah.
in fact, I even wrote a book that nobody ever wanted called Till Death to Us Part, Owning One Horse for Life, because that animal, I got him when he was 5 years old. So he was 21 or 23. I don't know. And he was a really remarkable animal. And I took him through 5 different boarding facilities. And from an English saddle, where I studied dressage for 5 years, was I nuts? It's a fabulous discipline, but it took more work than it was worth. And then I finally put a Western saddle on him, and I trail rode him till I couldn't ride him anymore. And he was like my best friend and my mentor. And I really feel like I owe that horse a lot for teaching me the insight and the patience that you need with equines, and to be able to write about them today. So
Hmm.
I can tell you, since Finding Home is written in the first person from the point of view of a horse's head, and I try not to anthropomorphize the horse to
Hmm.
make him into an equine human.
Hmm.
Rather, I tried to keep him true to what I think is the way a horse thinks. I mean, who knows? But
Well, yeah.
you do your
You,
best.
yeah.
Right. And so I feel, and by the way, the book has become a finalist with Western Writers of America. There are
Nice.
a lot of horse people there. Just a
Uh-huh.
few days ago, it became a finalist with the Colorado Independent Publishers Association.
Wow.
And we'll find out September 10th if it's a winner or not.
Oh, wow.
And it has, I'm waiting to hear from Women Writing the West. That is coming up in October, their conference, and we'll see whether or not it gets any recognition there. But I'm just saying that I was singing to the choir. I wanted this book to be read by horse people,
Hmm.
and I think it's past muster, as we say
Hmm.
out west,
Hmm.
uh, to people who know. So if you're
Right.
not a horse owner, I hope it spoke a truth to you anyway.
Yes, I have a pretty redheaded boy out in the field.
Oh,
Um,
good. Okay.
yes, my mother-in-law had his mom, and then my husband has had him longer than we've been married. So
Oh,
yes,
okay. So you know
he's
what I
out
mean.
there. Yeah, and
They,
yeah. So the first time I met him, um, we went out and walked around in the field, and of course it's windy. We're out in the eastern plains, and so my hair was flying all around, and so he just thought that that was the coolest thing. I remember him walking along with us. It was kind of like the three of us were walking along, and he just kept on like kind of checking like what is this. I had this big
oh, good.
horse. He's kind of a big boy. Just like what is this stuff flying around your head? Because of course, my husband doesn't have that happening, and so that was my first introduction to him, and been a lot of years now. But he's definitely got a quirky personality.
Oh, they're all so different. They're all so
Yes,
wonderful.
yes.
Uh, I don't know if there's another horse in my life or not, but I'm hanging on to everything. I've got a saddle stand in my office. I've got my chaps and a bridle hanging at the door. It's like the bunkhouse here.
Nice. Oh, that's okay. Those are things you
But
keep. I mean, and
you
if
know
you
what?
don't use them,
They
somebody down.
comfort me. I live in a very contemporary home
Uh
based on
huh.
the fact that we're in the European home furnishings business in real life. That's what pays the bills.
Uh huh.
And come down here to my office. It's like Ranch Central. I don't know how else to put it. It's there's a lot of mementos from my lifetime with the horse world. I mentioned to you that I was a staff writer for Working Ranch magazine, and I
Mhm.
very proudly interviewed a ranch rodeo team every month for 6 years and went to a lot of ranch rodeos. And it's a lifestyle that I really admire and love. So,
Mhm. Yeah, it takes a tough kind of person
oh,
to make it work.
tough. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, so now we know you started writing when you were young, and I just want to point that out again because we have a lot of young people around here that are kind of in this life. We have a lot of ranches around our library, and there's just some tough individuals around here. But I just like to point out to them every once in a while, you can do anything, and you can start it whenever you want to. You can start it
Absolutely.
at 10 years old or 40 years old.
And they're not aware. Working Ranch Magazine has a junior edition that comes out twice a year that is put together by teens and is totally filled with content written by ranch kids. They're not
Oh,
aware. Yeah, they should go to workingranch.com, check it out.
okay. Okay. I will make note of that. Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So my next question was, how long does it take you to write a book?
You know, it all depends on the circumstances. One of my favorite books is called Sanctuary Ranch. And for 5 years, I established and ran a literary conference in Gunnison, Colorado with Western State College, which is now a branch of CU. Not a fairly recent, but maybe 3 years ago, they became the Western Slope version of Colorado University. Back
Hmm.
then, starting in 2000, they were independent, and I brought each summer about 25 people to Gunnison. A
Hmm.
cowboy signed up for the conference and approached me on a trail ride. And he said, "My name is Junior Michael Ray. I'm from Evergreen, Colorado. I'm a sixth generation rodeo cowboy, and I would like to write a book with you. I read McGregor's Lantern and I loved it, and I need a female writing partner who can write from a woman's perspective because I have this book idea, and I want to be your. Let's write it together." So I said, "Whoa, I don't write books with people. I don't know how that works. Who owns it? You know." It's like, let me look at your proposal. And afterwards I called him. I said, I'd like to buy the storyline from you. I think it's fabulous. He said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not selling. Let's give it a whirl. Well, I have to tell you, we met once in person in a coffee shop. And then we wrote that book in 6 weeks from beginning to end, alternating chapters. It was just the most exhilarating experience of my life. Junior Ray was 20 years younger than me. He was an ex-Gulf War vet. He was a real rodeo cowboy. He had a viewpoint that was tough as nails, and yet he really didn't know how to structure or write a novel. We
Mm-hmm.
put that book together, and it was a huge success. It was optioned for film for 6 years. It never did get produced, excuse me, but I'm as proud of that book as any. And I will say it has a little rough language in it. You got to expect that from an ex-army, um, rodeo. But we knew who would we sort of targeted for 16 to 24-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
and it made the circuit. In fact, I got letters from a lot of Dude Ranch staff. Somehow
Uh-huh.
that book went through that network of people who wrote me and said, everybody in our bunkhouse read this book and we all loved it. We wish we knew Jess McLean. Sanctuary Ranch is a story of a fictional ranch in northern Wyoming, a home
Mm-hmm.
for dropouts and oddities and people that just don't fit in and who need to find a new home and heal. And it's a powerful story that has a lot of truth in it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an exciting experience for me. So that's an answer to your question. Whereas McGregor's Lantern took over 2.5 years to write with endless revisions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Come and Get It, the dinnerware book. I got the contract from the publisher. I remember it was like May 18th. On like May 24th, I had a horrific fall and I broke my right arm, sprained my left wrist. And that book was due September 1st. They gave me the summer to write it.
Oh.
Yeah, and I could hardly even type. But I started by inventorying all the dinnerware that I had bought on eBay, which I really knew nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on the phone. And then I went to the library and got every single book on the history of dinnerware ever written. And believe it or not, I just did all this research and then exploded. Like once I got the cast off, from July to September, I wrote that book in two months. So,
Wow.
so it all depends, on the circumstances, how
Yeah.
fired up I am.
Well, yeah, and how much research and background you need to find out.
Right, right. The
Right.
writing process is a magical one. And I swear it's almost like being possessed. Once you find that vein, that sort of the current, sometimes I'll write for hours and then I'll come down the next morning and I'll look at it and I can't even believe I wrote it all. It's like, did
Wow.
I? No. So it's weird, but it's
Well, it's
other,
impressive.
yeah,
That's
other
why not
writers.
everybody is a writer. All
It's
right.
an
So,
altered state.
so just curious, do people know you're a writer? Do people recognize you when you walk around doing your everyday stuff?
Well, I've actually been featured in a couple of local or regional magazines here
Uh-huh.
in Greenwood Village and in Denver proper. In fact, the Denver Post did a huge story on me a couple of years ago. If you Google me, that usually pops up first. It's on the dinnerware book and the dinnerware collection. It's a urban cowgirl something. I'm an anomaly. I mean, the pieces don't add up. Most cowgirls aren't in the European home furnishings business, but I
Probably
make it
not.
all work. It's like Roman riding. It's like having two horses, two sets of reins. And yes, people do recognize me, or they'll say, "I heard you speak." One of my books, 2 books ago, I wrote a book that won the New Mexico Book Award for historical fiction, and also won the Latino Literacy Award for
Mm-hmm.
inspirational. I came in second in historical fiction The reader ahead of me who took first award was Isabel Allende, probably the most prominent Latino writer in the world. So I didn't mind coming in second.
Uh-huh.
That book, Hidden Star, um, earned me a author book tour across this country that was all expenses paid. I went to 6 different cities, and I've spoken to probably 30 book clubs and a number of groups in Denver. So people will come up to me in the grocery store and say, I heard you talk at the Spanish Genealogical Society meeting. And I'm not Hispanic, I'm not Latino.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a book that took me, out of my comfort zone and into another world. And it worked. That was the
Mm-hmm.
book that got me my new agent. By the way, we just parted company, but I love her to death. She lives down where you live. Um, doesn't matter. She's in Falcon, I think. Yeah, Falcon.
Oh, okay. Okay. Nice.
So yes, I guess I'm sort of a underserved celebrity of sorts. I don't know. Who knows?
All right. Well, that's neat to know. I always am curious, at what level do you go from, yeah, I can walk around in my sweatpants to, I probably need to, you
Oh,
know.
I still do. I don't put on makeup to go to the grocery store.
Nice.
But
Nice.
I didn't start writing. I didn't seek a career as a writer. Very few people make it to the stratosphere, as in making any money or becoming a bestseller.
Mhm.
Two, McGregor's Lantern and Sanctuary Ranch both became regional bestsellers. That's where you
Mhm.
sell 50 books or more at the tattered cover on your book signing.
Okay.
And so did Hidden Star, for that matter. So that gets you into the Denver Post bestsellers list for that month, which is a good thing. To ever make it, to the New York Times bestseller list, I don't think that's ever going to happen in my lifetime, and I don't really care. You almost have to be a celebrity or have an agency that caters to a hot topic, you know. So at this point in my life, I've sort of taken the reins of concept, publication, and distribution. I've discovered that publishing your own work, there's nothing wrong with that, and getting it out there, shipping books directly to clients, selling them off my website is a fabulous way rather than competing with 60 million books on Amazon, even though all my work is accessible on Amazon. Some of my books are ebooks. One of them is an audio book.
Mhm.
So that one of them went into big print, Sanctuary Ranch. My publisher at that time loved it and made a big print edition, which is in the box that I'm sending you, by the way,
Oh,
of
thank you.
my work. Um,
Thank you. Yes.
I think that that's where the industry is heading. There are thousands of good writers, and most publishers don't have the time to consider every title. They're looking for a way to make money. And if they don't think they can bank on it and that it'll sell for them, that's a book that gets overlooked.
Mhm.
Uh, in fact, I'll tell you, Hidden Star, I spent 2 years knocking on doors. I mean, literally, I was agented. My agent didn't want it, it was too regional for her. Um, Long story short, I ended up self publishing it with a hybrid publisher up in Canada, Friesen, and they loved it and they incorporated it into their offering. They put it into their bookstore and they put their name on it. That doesn't always happen with a vanity press,
Mhm.
generally. So that was a good thing. And at that point, then I started submitting it to book awards. It won 6 book awards, and I don't mean from the ones that you pay for. I mean legitimate national, for indie forwards, um, Western Writers of America, Women Writing the West. Um, I can't remember all the stickers that are on there at this point. The Latino Literacy, which is a branch of the American Library Association. And then
Mhm.
the American Jewish Book Council selected me to be an author on tour. And I
Wow.
was invited, as I mentioned, to 6 cities, all expenses paid, to tell the story of this book to auditoriums full of people. So I feel like I've had a great ride. I feel very lucky that my books
Hmm.
are reaching people who seem to love them. And I'm so thrilled at this stage of my life to be writing horse books for young people. You know, I
Yeah.
was a teenager once, wasn't
Hmm.
that long ago, and I remember it well. So I hope my stories ring true.
Yeah, they definitely do. They are. It was just a joy to read your book. I really, really enjoyed it. Obviously, I really enjoyed it. I went out and, you know, got a hold of the whole thing to so that we could bring that into our library, which I just really have a feeling the moms, dads, kids around here, whoever, I think they're going to enjoy your books
Well,
because that is the community that we live in.
and
So,
I respect who they are. As I mentioned to you, I was very privileged to write for uh, Working Ranch magazine, which basically caters to the exactly what it says, the professional rancher. And
mhm,
and I was very fortunate to get to know a lot of ranching communities personally. I drove out to a spring branding out in Hugo.
mhm,
I drove out to La Junta. I've been all over the state, and for a year, believe it or not, I was the marketing PR director for the Women's Ranch Rodeo Association.
mhm,
Their headquarters are in Nebraska, at least the president there. And there are 26 teams today, 4 women teams, who do the same darn thing these guys do. As I used to say in my pitch, they just look a lot better doing it. And I went up to Fort Collins to the Tri County arena up there, the Budweiser Arena, and I watched ranch rodeo competition for 3 days. Um,
mhm.
you know, there's a cowgirl in me that just dying to come out every day. But I
Right.
have to be content, I guess, about writing. And by the way, finding home isn't the story of a cowgirl. Like a lot of kids who live on the edge in either rural communities or in town who wish they could live that life every day, but their moms work, they go to school every day, maybe they just ride on the weekends, and horses are a part of their life, they're not their whole life.
Mhm,
And that's who Jessie was. And on
mhm.
top of it, you know, she had trouble at home, and who doesn't? I mean, there's always something, right?
Right.
And the story has a happy ending, so
Yes.
look
Yes.
out.
I loved how real it was. It was very good.
Thank you.
Well, okay. So now I want to help people know who you are as a person because I think we've talked about your books and we know that we're going to have them in the library here. So hopefully people will,
Excuse me.
rotate through them. So, but you as a person, I think we all have started kind of learning how to work from home with all this stuff going on lately. Um, I have 3 cats,
Mm-hmm.
and they all like to sit on my lap. And so if I'm working from home, that gets to be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have similar issues? Do you have helpers?
Let's see if I can uh, point the Cammy. Take a look. She's under the table over there.
Oh,
So my sidekick, my saddle pal, is a 10-year-old Rottweiler female.
oh,
She lost her best friend 2 years ago, her male counterpart, and we bought a puppy, a German Shepherd puppy, who was her nemesis. Um,
oh,
they have nothing in common. So he does his thing with my husband, and she just won't leave my side.
oh, nice.
We come down here to work every day, and she either lays under my desk where my word processor is, or
Uh-huh.
under this table over here. And I'm thrilled to have her because she's kind of like my muse, my canine muse. If she's
Uh-huh.
not in the room, I can't get going. It's like,
Uh-huh.
where's Cammy? So
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked. She gets all the credit. And I can't imagine the day that she's not here. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
I hope she lives a long, long time. So
Yeah. Yeah. We get attached to them for sure. Oh. So how does your daily schedule go? Do you have a certain routine then? Do you spend a certain amount of time on
No,
writing?
I wish I did. I've discovered that I need to get outdoors and I need to move. So at least 3 times a week, I go to the YMCA and I swim, which is crazy because all my life I hated swimming, but now I love
Mhm.
it. I try to write in the morning because once the afternoon comes, if I'm lucky, I've sold a book that day and I like to mail them right out. The
Mhm.
afternoons tend to sort of disintegrate. I pick up my husband from work early so I can avoid the rush hour because he doesn't drive anymore, but he still loves going to work. Sometimes the spirit grabs me and I'll start on something and I'll write like straight through lunch, or I'll come back to my computer after dinner and I'll write till midnight.
Mhm.
Wish I could say I had a schedule, but writing isn't like that. I know the great writers. In fact, Stephen King wrote a whole book on writing, and and some of them can just like turn on a tap. They say it's a matter of discipline, of sitting down in front of your computer at the same time every day, and I don't believe that. I think that writing is a connection to the divine. It's a creative process,
Mhm.
and that you're very lucky when you can tap in and feel like you're connected. I feel like it's just this great gift and this great um, impulse. And I have to tell you, I'm like 6 chapters into the new sequel or the series, and I sent them to Ginny. And a few days later, she wrote me with an idea for an illustration for like chapter 5. And I said, there goes the magic. The characters are talking to you. This is what happens. They take over. I mean, you all think
Mhm.
it's up here. It really isn't. If you establish the platform and the character, and then there's an old saying in the writing world that if you are truthful enough to the characters, they will walk into your life. And they have. Uh,
Mhm.
they literally have. And I won't go into all of that, but it's a blessing and it's like a miracle. And so I feel like I'm doing the creator's work like anything, like composing a symphony or painting a painting. There's something transcendental about that, or it's not calculated. It's not something a robot or a machine could produce. And
Mhm.
every event is unique. So if I sound like I'm touched or off the charts, forgive me. But that's sort of oh, I'll give you an example. In the story of McGregor's Lantern, there's a story of a ship that goes down in the North Sea, and my main character survives it. Most of the crew drowned, and I had named the ship the Dunkirk, and it came to me just out of nowhere. It sounded sort of Nordic or Celtic, or at least Anglican, and that would be a good name for a fishing vessel. I found out later when I looked up the word Dunkirk that it is a final threshold. It actually means like the final confrontation. We all
Mhm.
know about the Battle of Dunkirk in
Mhm.
World War I, I believe. Um, it was no coincidence that my subconscious, that was kind of tapped into what I call this universal ether band or the Jungian subconscious reservoir of all knowledge. It's
Mhm.
1 in the morning, you're sitting there typing, there you are in the middle of a line, you're imagining this horrific storm and this tragic scene in which this fishing vessel goes down, and suddenly you need the name of the ship. And you just type in this word and you go on. The next morning you come down and read it. And then you go to Wikipedia and you look it up. It's like, well, yeah, that had to be the name of the ship.
Mhm.
So that's the sort of connection that happens when you write faithfully. And I feel very lucky that it never fails me. Um, Especially even when I wrote McGregor's Lantern and went all the way to Scotland and visited people and stayed on a cattle farm in the northwest of Scotland, Oban. And
Mhm.
so many things I had incorporated into the story proved to be true. I mean, I just imagined them. I'd never been there. I sort of went to Scotland in the middle of the book, and there it was. So I feel I hope I live long enough to write all the books that are still in me. I think you were going to
Yeah.
ask the question like, what's next? I think we're ready for that.
Okay, yes. I am going to ask you, what is next? Do you have anything in the wings?
Oh, I do. I'm working on something so joyful and so fabulous. I can hardly wait till it's out. Um, when Jenny and I wrote this book, we consulted a copyright attorney because we didn't want any of the beautiful illustrations or the logo, the red running horse, to end
Hmm.
up on a pair of pajamas or a backpack or a ball cap. And so he said, in order to trademark and register, you have to produce another book in this genre within 6 months. Could you do that? And I said, oh, sure, I can produce a book in 6 months. My undergraduate degree is in art education, and I was an art teacher in the Jeffco school system for many years.
Hmm.
I was also the art director at the Jewish Community Center, and I taught some art classes to kids for years in my house. So I said, I've always wanted to write a book called Awesome Art Activities for Horse Loving Kids. So Jenny looked at me and said, that would be good. Why don't you do that? So I said, all right, that's going to be my book because I've got all the tricks up my sleeve from years of teaching art with kids. But what I want is to find a pony club, like a group of kids who love horses, to actually do the art examples or the lessons for each chapter. So I did. I found a local pony club of kids. Some owned horses, some don't. And we met for 4 months until COVID broke out. Then I
Hmm.
had the last two chapters over the phone with one of the most gifted kids or the most committed girls in the group who would do my art classes all day long if she could. And I put together this astonishing book about art history, filled with images from the past, starting with the Lascaux cave paintings, featuring works by living artists and those who have passed, along with the actual real examples of 7 to 12-year-old kids who did these lessons in a converted barn in Greenwood Village in a 2 hour window with a bunch of mothers looking on in amazement. um, One of them I actually had do in her own house because I was having a book signing that day at Denver's Rockmount Ranch store. And I said, I hate to cancel this day. I'm going to send you everything for this lesson, including all the materials. Go for it. So that book is going to the printer in a couple of weeks. And it's just the first 6 lessons. Volume 2 will come out in about 6 months, I hope. There will be
Wow.
4 altogether. So there'll be 2 years worth of art lessons if you do one every month. That's my goal.
Oh, nice.
Or,
I
or
like it.
for people who homeschool, all
Uh-huh.
of these are doable with a trip to Target, Michael's, or Hobby Lobby. I mean, these are art materials that are within the financial reach and handy, craft store. Every single one of these engages a real set of art materials. There are no finger puppets and paint a horseshoe these are real learning opportunities with intention, materials, process, and then images of what the kids actually did. And it's the most fun book I've ever made.
And what's the name of it again?
Awesome art activities for horse loving kids. It's on
I will look for it.
It's on my website already. You will see
Okay.
the new cover. Actually, it's been simplified a little bit, and you could pre-order it if you wanted to. We don't have a price up there yet. I think it's going to sell for $16.95,
Okay.
but it's going to have a hardcover washable. It's spiral bound, so you can lay it out flat, so you can
Okay.
read along, and it's meant to be used and abused and enjoyed.
I like it. That
Right?
sounds right up our alley.
It
Yes,
is.
we have a lot of kiddos that are doing the homeschooling option, so that sounds great.
It's great. And I'd love for people to send me their work. Take a picture, scan it, or just email it. And maybe we'll end up with a whole showcase on my website, which would be so exciting to
Yes.
feature young artists. And we're incorporating the horse. I don't want to give away all the incredibly unique and original ways in which we're looking at the horse as our subject. And
Uh-huh.
no one has to be a perfect draftsman. You know,
Uh-huh.
horses can be pretty darn awkward to draw, especially if you're drawing them from the back. Or
Mm.
hey, they're awkward to photograph. Who doesn't know
Mhm.
that? You don't get them at just the right angle. The head looks really big, and the hindquarters are like out there somewhere. The beautiful thing is, and I don't use the rote method that you'll find in a lot of books called How to Draw Animals, where the horse is like a circle and a trapezoid and a rectangle and a cylinder. I don't do that. I don't think that's the way to learn to draw animals. There is an inner horse inside the head of every kid that loves horses, and that horse will come out no matter how good you are at scale and proportion. And I watched it happen over the 4 months I worked with these kids. The results were like astonishing. They all got, I won't say better, because I'm not product oriented, I'm process oriented. And
Uh-huh.
the work is just fabulous. And I found my niche. I'm going to run with this for 4 volumes.
Wow, I am impressed.
Well, thank you.
Wow, you are impressive.
Oh,
You just, you've got something that for every bit, every member of the family, every member of the town, or, the grumpy old guys, the romantic tendencied young folks, and
well,
it's just
let
impressive.
me add 2 more words about the book. Why not them? If
Okay.
I may. I was hired to write the biography of Mr.
Hmm.
Lloyd Lewis, who is the executive director of the ARC thrift stores across the Front Range. There are
Okay.
now 32 of them. And what most people don't realize is that these stores were created to provide work opportunities for persons with disabilities, ranging
Hmm.
from nonverbal to intellectual to physical to autism, Asperger's, Down syndrome, many people who have just not been given a true opportunity to integrate. Lloyd runs a year round program called um, ARC University, which are 6 week courses taught everything from personal hygiene to how to build a birdhouse, to how to make a sailboat, to how to groom a dog. It doesn't matter. He gives many people who had to either drop out of school or couldn't succeed in school a chance to continue to self educate. Every year, he has a huge graduation program that is just overwhelmingly heartwarming. I spent 2 years following Lloyd through his life and interviewing persons that work at Arc Thrift. I entered the world of persons with disabilities and I got to know, I say them, intimately. I met a woman with MS who writes the most beautiful poetry I've ever read. I met a guy with Asperger's who's socially difficult, but who found his calling as a cashier at one of the biggest ARC thrifts. As long as he's got all his pennies and nickels and dimes lined up, man, he's a happy camper. He's the coolest guy. He's now living on his own. I I cannot tell you how I realize that we live in a world where many people are invisible. And do you know that 1 out of 8 Americans is born with a disability?
Mm.
Lloyd's fourth child was born with Down syndrome, something he knew nothing about. And as he held that baby in his arms, the very first time they were able to bring him home, because he was in special care for 6 weeks, he said, I may not be able to change who you are, but I'm going to change the world you're growing up into. And today, Kennedy is 16. He goes to Cherry Creek Middle School. He's the most darling young man. I started writing this book when he was 10. And I want to tell you that if there's someone in your readers or listeners' world deserves a better chance, please read Why Not Them. I sent you a copy in this book. It's available on in many sites, Amazon. You can go to Arc Thrift. You can go to my website. And in the end, at the end, are a number of resources that people can go to for advocacy, for medical help, for all kinds of assistance if they need it. So I have to tell you, that was the book that changed my life, and I'm so proud that I was able to write it.
That is awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
So welcome.
So,
So important.
and all those references, those are on your website.
Yes, they are. And the book
Okay.
is titled Why Not Them? And I think the title is obvious. We
Yes.
all have an obligation to hire, accept, integrate, respect, and celebrate people with difference. So,
Mm-hmm. Because differences in people, I mean, it makes you appreciate each other all the much more.
and the capacity, the talents, and as Lloyd has learned, he has a workforce of 1,600 people, and three-quarters of them are persons with disabilities. And they buddy up with people that aren't disabled in any way if they need assistance. But trust me, they're not stuck in some back room,
Mm-hmm.
stuck with envelopes. They are engaged and engaging, and they grow and they they rise to capacities never before imagined. And he is a game changer who's one of my biggest heroes. So I encourage everyone to shop and give what you want to donate to art thrift stores because they're making a difference.
That is awesome. That's good to know.
Good.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, I think we're kind of at the end of our time. Is there anything we have CorinneJoyBrown.com is your website, and we know that you have a contact you button, and
Right.
if you want story suggestions or whatnot.
Let me just say that all the books I've published are available directly from me if you want an autographed copy, with
Okay.
the exception of Sanctuary Ranch. I think I have 5 copies left. And that's both stunning and sort of painful because it sold well. At the same time, I'd love to offer it to people, but it's out there. You can get it at Used Book, A Libris, or Amazon. That's
Okay.
a great story for the teen reader.
Okay.
And otherwise, I just thank you for this huge opportunity to be available to your listeners.
Well,
And
thank you for joining us.
yeah,
You have shared a wealth of information on an amount of topics that I don't think many people have thought that one person could be in that. It makes me want to just say you're kind of a Renaissance woman.
thank
You've
you.
done a lot, and I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with us. And I hope our young folks can get into your readings here and just maybe reference your website and maybe you've inspired somebody. I love the
Children
art.
to write to me if they have questions about being a writer, or if they want me to look at their short story, or if they want. God, I mean, I'm there. It's time in my life to be a mentor. And
Hmm.
the past president of the Denver Women's Press Club. I was a press woman, a journalist, as I told you, for most of my writing career. And it's
Hmm.
my turn to encourage the next generation, and I'm thrilled to do it.
Well,
So,
thank you. And that is the end of our two-part interview with Corinne Joy Brown. We're very glad that she could join us and talk with us. It went a little long, so we made it into two parts, but this is the end. I hope you guys enjoyed watching everything. She's got a ton of information for everybody in the family. She's got two websites, CorinneJoyBrown.com as well as MustangCurly.com. And the art book, Awesome Art Activities for Her Horse Lovers, coming out. It's going to be great. She's got a lot of great books. I hope you all will check them out. They will be coming into our library, and you can check them out. You can go to her website and purchase them directly. She had a lot of great, great stuff. I loved her style of writing. It's very good. It's intellectually challenging. It flows. It was great, great books. I hope you all will go check out her websites, send her an email, send her ideas for the stories that you might have. If nothing else, she is just a joy to talk to. Corinne, we thank you so much for joining us at the library via the web, and hope you have a great time, and we enjoyed having you. Have a great day, guys.